What's going on, guys? My name's Matilio and welcome back to A Guide to Leeds United, and once again I'm here with GeeW FM.
Now then, how you doing?
Right then, so hopefully you've all seen the first part. If you haven't, you can go check that out. There is a link in the description and that is on G's channel right now. And in the first part we went through a good portion of the first team, the under 18s or the youth teams, and also the taking a look at the staff. But in this one, we're going to be looking at some potential tactics, the finances, and also some potential transfer business in and out. So let's jump straight into it.
Okay.
Right then, so we're going to look at some potential tactics now, and we've got a few on offer for you. Which is the first one, G?
I reckon we've got to go to the most true-to-life one at the minute, which is the 4-2-3-1 wide. It's what we've been accustomed to probably the last 2 seasons, well, 1.5 seasons, if you include this season as well. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of what the personnel we've got available when you start the game leaves open. There are other options, but it's this sort of system where the players seem to be most comfortable in terms of the options you've got available. Of course, you can probably go out and buy players if you wanted to play something else, but for the first few, for pre-season in the very least, this is probably the formation you're going to be playing. Now we've tried to sync it, so G and me have got the same thing on screen. So I'm just going through what we've got here. So we've got not necessarily in terms of the personnel you should be playing. In my opinion, this is the best squad or the best first team you've got. There's probably an argument to be made about the centre midfield, maybe having O'Kane in there, but I'm not a big fan of his. But
I like it.
This is probably the formation. I was saying it to G before, and this is the formation that I probably would go for in games where it's probably going to be mostly even, because this is where I might be doing a lot of switching around. Switching of the
roles or whatever.
The roles. So pushing. I've got Roof here, and I've switched in with Alioski just now, as you can see, and putting him as a winger. And this is the one where, like I said, if you're going to be playing against teams which are around your level, this is probably the formation you want to be playing.
I think the way that you probably gauge that as well is look at the odds before a game. If you've got them, that is, you should get them. Usually, if it's like a close odds, that kind of indicates it's going to be a tight game. In my opinion, that's what it is. So that can dictate which tactic you use. Because obviously, if you've got different setups, you could have like a defensive one against the top teams that are like huge favourites. And if you're massive favourites, you want your most attacking one. Really, I think that's where I've seen in the past FMs anyway.
Yeah. So speaking of having more defensive formations or options available depending on who you're playing, the next one we're going to look at formation wise is the 4-3-3 DM wide. Now G mentioned this in the last video that we don't really have an out and out ball winning midfielder. One of the players, I'm just going to make a quick change here because as you can see, Size is not a defensive midfielder. I don't know, you might be able to play there, but I don't think he'll do well there. But you'd be looking at either playing Vernon Anita or Ronaldo Vieira in that role, unless you go out and buy someone, which is something we've got to touch on in a little while. But what are your thoughts on this formation?
I like it. It looks like it covers quite a lot of it, like in the analysis sort of screen for the tactics. You've got a lot of no real danger areas as such. If everyone's playing in like to the strengths, it looks like it could be a really solid. Well, I was going to say structured, but it is actually team shape structured as well. Like tactics. So, I mean, you're looking at, like I say, Anita running the show. Looking at it, that's what the register's supposed to do. That's what I've got it set as here. Is that what you've got?
Yeah, that's what I've got there.
Yeah. So you've got him. You've got deep line playmaking Vieira, and basically the different variation of box to box for Phillips. So you got a good 3 in there that are all decent at tackling as well. So should be able to get stuck in while going about the business. You've got the inside forwards both on attack, as you don't have like middle central player. So the attacking player that is like we had on the first tactic, and you've got the target man on support. So he's looking to flick them on, and you've got like the 2 wingers going forward. So in theory, it sounds like it could be really, really good. And it's a counter system. So you've got the fullbacks on defend, or wing backs as it were. So the idea, obviously, draw them in, get it forward as quickly as possible with your creative players in the middle of the park, with Phillips probably supporting, and you've got like four attacking players really. But then in theory, it sounds like it should work. Whether it does, obviously, remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's been a bit. A lot of people have said that's a little bit up and down with regards to tactics in FM18. How it's a bit more difficult, I think is the best way of putting it. I think there's just a case that there's a lot of new stuff in the game, and you've really got to strike a balance with it to make a formation work.
Yeah.
And a
one
system
thing I will
work.
Sorry, mate. One thing I will say is, being a Leeds fan, it's for me personally, it's reluctant for me to use a system like this because of Samu Saiz. Because Samu Saiz has been like our one highlight of this season, really, the main highlight, should I say? And you want to play him, and he only seems to be able to play as an attacking mid. So, but don't let it put you off trying to use other systems, because that's my downfall, I think. And I think as a result, in my series, it's been showing, and we've had some really poor results. So.
Yeah, I'm going to start the hashtag GeeOut, so you can follow that on Twitter.
Cheers,
but yeah, like you were saying with sides, with this system, when I put it together, when we looked at it, it was more of a system where you probably know you're going to be under the cosh a little bit, so you might just have to sacrifice one of those creative players. You've still got a couple in Roof and Alioski, and maybe to an extent Lasoga and Phillips, but it's just more about trying to keep things at the back, and then maybe catching someone unawares on the counter if you're playing against a team, let's say Wolves hypothetically, which they've got quality all over.
They've got Ruben Neves, haven't they? So that's all they need.
Oh, it's alright. No, we'll just put Vieira. Vieira will just go and kick him for a while. That should sort him out.
Yeah.
Right then.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
The other thing I was going to say about that, sorry, is that's probably the one that you'd use if you were like massive underdogs, in my opinion.
Yeah, that'd be where I'd put it. You wouldn't want to be too defensive, but a counter-attacking, like I said, it could get you a result here and there. You never know.
Yeah.
Right then, so the last one, because we're only doing 3, just for the time constraints, this is one I came up with, the 4-3-3 wide, and my thinking for this one is you will probably run up against sides who will have 3 or 5 in the midfield. I don't like playing like 4 across the centre, like a traditional 4-4-2. It's not. I think it's a little bit antiquated, a little bit dated, and it can be found out a little bit easy. I think it has its place, but this is why I went for this, just purely so you don't get swamped in the midfield, and so you maybe have a little bit more attacking emphasis because you haven't got a defensive midfielder there. So you've still got a bit of security with Vieira and what would be Anita or even O'Kane in there and Klitsch. So you've got a lot of options in the centre midfield, but the inside forwards have gone to a more attacking role. The Sogga's gone to an attacking role. The wing backs, the full backs are now pushed forward a little bit further, getting more involved in it. What are your thoughts, G?
Well, it's on a control mentality. So the idea is obviously try and pass it out from back and or have you having 3 at Middle Park. One in particular, advanced playmaker as well. He's going to be the one that's going to make it tick. You've got 2 workhorses in the ball-winning midfielder roles. I think this is where you might need an extra ball-winning midfielder, because for me, there's only these 2 players that can play as a ball-winning midfielder, and they're not even not amazing at it. Ronaldo Vieira's all right, but he's only got 12 tackling, and as is Phillips. They're both very similar at this point. So I think you need someone who's a little bit stronger, and then if need be, you can change one of them up to a more advanced one if you're struggling a little bit, maybe. But it all depends again, because you've got the other tactics that are situational. But yeah, like you say, you've got the inside forwards and the target man on attack as well. So yeah, it looks like it should work. And I do like the fact of having 2 ball-winning midfielders. I do like players to get stuck in, but then the only downside that you might have is you're asking for yellow cards. But I don't mind getting yellow cards. It's when you start getting red cards that's when it's an issue.
Yeah, exactly. We all know a bit about that. Having who was it? Who got the most? Was it Bridcut and Janssen last year? I think they got banned for yellow cards.
It was 17 yellow cards.
Yeah, so we don't mind a bit of that. It's kind of like it's in the lifeblood of Leeds United. Yeah, ingratiated into Leeds United.
Sorry, go on, mate.
Carry on. What were you going to say?
One thing I will say is that if you do get yellow cards, there's a way that it worked on FM17. I never saw it happen once. I think we mentioned a couple of times by a few other content creators. But if you say calm down at half time, if you've got a yellow card at half time, or even I would guess even if you say calm down in the shouts at the sideline, you don't find them getting a second yellow card. Other than that, you can just knock off tackle harder or change the role so they're not going to go in hard.
Yeah, that was something that used to be a favourite of mine. I think I might have learned that from you potentially in your series.
It might have been, but it went down to me. I learned from someone else, so just a knock-on effect, I think.
There you go. So there's another reason you've got to go up and watch some content creators, because you never know what you might learn, boys and girls. There's always stuff to be learned in this game, especially this year, considering how difficult it can be.
And especially bad habits.
Yeah, well, you have to go to G's channel for that, because you know how good I am. FA Cup, League Cup, one season. What? Right then.
Get FA Cup in 4 years or something.
Yeah, and two seasons ago at the Championship. We're not going to go into that now. We're gonna leave G alone. But yeah, that's in terms of potential tactics. Obviously, we could go a bit more in depth, but that would basically mean this video would be an hour long, possibly more. But yeah, like I said, these are the three that we feel would probably work. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to take a quick look at the finances. Now, the finances this year are probably the best we've ever seen it in Football Manager.
I would say ever. I'd say probably within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
At least.
I mean, we're used to coming on and finding that we've got 2,000 in wages and 100,000 to spend, but this season, thankfully, we've got a budget of £5 million. Thank you, Radrizana.
Yeah, it's a very good amount. That I do like that, and 75% of the transfer revenue is made available if you was to sell anyone.
True. Not that you probably would, but if you did decide to sell someone, you've got that available. Yeah. The only other thing is wages. You've only got 16,000 available. Oh,
yeah.
Is it 16? Yeah, 16,000. Sorry. Which I don't know, for a championship quality, that could get you 2 players. But
yeah,
again, if you're finding free transfers, then you can obviously mess around with the budgets, drag some out of the transfer and put it into the wage budget. The other option you would have, of course, is the season expectations, because I've got the screen up here. G doesn't have it probably, but
I've seen it. Yeah, I know. I checked it out.
So you've got all your things here. I mean, if you were to go for very, very ambitious and pick promotion, 6th round of the FA Cup, quarter final of the Cabral, we just got to call it the League Cup because it's a stupid name as it stands now.
Carabao Cup, yeah.
That's the one. You get an extra 1.3 million in terms of transfer budget and an extra 36,000 in terms of wages. So yeah, but again, that'd probably be a system where you probably would have to go out and buy someone. Just to make sure that you are, and someone pretty good as well, and we're going to look at that in a little while. But yeah, again, it just depends on what you feel is comfortable. Even if you went with the second tier, just playoffs, 5th round, 4th round, you get an extra 750,000, an extra 20,000 in wages, and 20,000 doesn't seem like much, but when you think about it, championship players, 8 to 10,000 a week maybe. That could be a couple of decent players.
The one thing is then you're adding an element of risk, but there's a saying, high risk, high reward. So it's entirely, but it depends, because some teams obviously get a higher one, but this is quite a decent one to be fair, because normally you might do all this sort and add it all and you get an extra like 200 grand, but an extra million, what is it, $1.5 million or something like that in total?
Yeah, if you went for the top tier expectations, an extra 1.35 million, pretty much.
But especially if the top one's to win the league, isn't it? Is it?
The sort of promotion, reach the 6th round in quarter final. I mean, so you could go that. I mean, it says reach the playoffs, but if you got promoted even via the playoffs, then you would still be technically, I believe, completing that. But still, again, it's like I said, risk reward in terms of what you want to do there. I mean, the other thing I'm going to say, and I think I've mentioned this to G once or twice, but the first time in a while, long-suffering Leeds United fans who play Football Manager have had money to spend, don't really need to spend it.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation, really. So it's like, you know, you love to see the old teams of old, should I say, you just need to rip it apart. They were terrible. You end up selling most of your players and keeping the ones that only just joined in real life at that time, and then just getting a load of awesome like players in from abroad or whatever, and then just like basically pissing the league. But yeah, it's a really good place to be, really, because you've got a wealth of talent and some players with some great potential as well. So we've got plenty of depth in most positions, apart from the certain ones we're going to cover shortly.
Yeah, well, what we're going to do now is move on to potential transfers, considering we're in the scouting thing, and what we decided to do is we're gonna look at each area of the team, so goalkeepers, defence, and just see if there's anywhere you may need to strengthen. I mean, honestly, we've kind of mentioned that you probably don't need to, but if you want to really, if you want to strengthen a little bit, there are areas that can use a little bit of added talent. So goalkeeper, I think we've said we're about set there, aren't we?
We are, not in real life, but on the game, yeah, we are. I mean, Lonergan. I like Lonergan, to be honest with you. He made a bit of a howler the other day in real life against Bristol City, but yeah.
In Brentford.
Sorry, yeah, Brentford, and but in the game he's only like 3-star, and Felix is not a cat like he looks like he is on the game. But yeah, Felix Wiedveld, he has had a bit of a mare since coming. It wasn't helped because Rob Green went, and he would have been probably an ideal goalkeeper for you with Rob Green for the first season. But we've obviously shipped him out. He's going to get splinters in his ass at Huddersfield Town. And we've got Wiedveld in, and he's basically, because we got rid of Rob Green, he's already hit some flack straight away before you even started, because it's like, why are we signing some cheapo goalkeeper? But on the game, he looks really good. Yeah. So, like Matt says, I think we're pretty much set for the first season. Albeit he's had a few mares on my game, but that's another story.
So we've looked at the transfers and the goalkeepers, which we said pretty much set. In terms of fullback, either side, right back, you're pretty much set. You've got Berardi, who is injured at the moment. Of course, he's going to be out for another 6 weeks to 3 months, and then you've also got Luke Ayling as well.
Who's class?
Yeah, class out.
Yeah, and then obviously you've got Vernon Nitu, who can cover there if needs be, as well as Pennington, but he's injured as well.
But left back is a little bit of a different story because all we've got is Cameron Borthwick-Jackson on loan from Manchester United. So, I mean, you've got Cooper who can play there, but
you don't really want to.
And Berardi who can play there, but I've got a thing about playing right-footed players on the left.
He's like. It's the same way Anita, he's right-footed as well. They'll do a job, but if you really want to get the best out of your formations and your squad, ideally, I think, full-back, you want left. I don't know why I turned 13 again. Then I don't know what happened with my voice, but yeah, you want your left back and your right back to both have the same foot, if you like, so left foot and right foot. In my opinion, and I guess your opinion as well.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just a weird OCD thing for me, really. But in terms of the targets, the big one that stands out for us is a guy called, do you want to say his name?
I'll try it. It's called Benoit. I don't know if I've written it down wrong. Tremulinas?
Yeah, well, he's a left back, 31 years old, French, 5 caps for France as well. So he's 31 years of age, but one of the things we both kind of talked about and mentioned before we started recording is very similar in terms of what we lost when Charlie Taylor decided to be a traitor and bugger off to Burnley.
The one thing I would say is his tackling is a lot worse. It's 12, whereas Charlie Taylor's was 16 or 17. I think it was 16 to start off with. But other than that, he's pretty much... In fact, he's probably even 31 years old, a little bit quicker. But yeah, he looks, especially for a season, maybe 2, it looks like he could be like easily the first choice left back, injuries aside, sort of thing. But that's if you can get him in, of course. He used to play for Sevilla and amongst other big teams in Europe.
Yeah, but I think this is one of those because you always get those free transfers that everybody must have, and this was the one that stuck out. If you want to pay money, another one I mentioned was Brad Smith, who is actually on the transfer list at Bournemouth, and you can get him for 2.9 million. Bonuses for this one is he's 23 years of age. His tackling is 13. His crossing's good. His pace is good, and I mean I like to build my teams around speed and pace. So
I'm kind of the same, yeah.
So this is potentially an option for you again if you want to strengthen that because he can play straight left back or he can play left wing back as well. So again, if you wanted to play a different formation to the ones we mentioned, then this is also an option. If you want to play, say, a 3 at the back, then he can play in the wing-back role, which will probably help you in that as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would say that comparing to just call him Chris Benoit for now, is mentally is nowhere near as good, but how important is that compared to the key stats of attributes of like tackling and marking and that? I mean, he's marginally better, but the one thing he has got in abundance is he's got pace. So if he does make a mistake, he has got the pace to get back. Or so you'd think. Whether that happens in the game remains to be seen. But it'd definitely be a good option, and especially for 2.9 million, I think it'd be a bit of a steal, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was someone I looked at in my FM17 save, but never pulled the trigger on. I almost did, but I didn't for some reason. I can't remember now. But yeah, there's not many. While we've got money to spend, we haven't got an overabundance of money to spend, so you do have to still be a little bit frugal with it. And one of the problems with this transfer, again, possibly could be wages. He's on 25,000 a week at Bournemouth, but
I agree with that.
I think if you want a left back, there's a deal to be done here for this one. But the other one, I don't think I mentioned it to G before we got it. Is from last year, Matthew Targett at Southampton under 23s, potentially getting him on loan.
I had it on my FM16 save, coming to his older years, like at Eastleigh. But yeah, he's another good defender with a lot of promise. 21 years old, so he's got a little room for improvement. You could actually probably get him on loan as well.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't necessarily need to pay for him, albeit he's not transfer listed on mine. I don't know about yours.
I've been loan listed.
For me, he's probably on a par with Brad Smith, but probably arguably a little bit worse because he's not as quick. But he's better in some areas on the mentals, and he's roughly about the same, probably slightly worse in the technical, but obviously he's younger, so they'll probably improve as he plays games, I would guess.
Right then, so what we're going to do now is move on to centre-backs, and again, it's an area where you could potentially strengthen. We do have a couple that, Pennington, who's injured for 2 to 3 months, so we've got Janssen, who's also going to be suspended as well, so it's possibly an area you could strengthen. G, what do you think?
The only other option you've got at the minute is Connor Shaughnessy, otherwise known as Shagnasty, but he is deemed on this game as not a centre-back, really. Accomplished he is, but it's only got like, what would you call it, 6 out of 10 in terms of the role. What's the word I'm looking for? Preference, if you like. It's basically not, it's nowhere near a full circle, so is he going to be the answer? Obviously, he's good enough to cover, I think, for the few games, but it's whether he's going to be the answer long term. And at the minute, you've only got one defender on loan and then 2 first-team defenders, really, on the scale of things. So I think getting another defender could definitely be on the cards. Do you think that?
Yeah, it just depends on if you are willing to wait. Because you will have to wait, because like we said, Janssen, he's facing a suspension for another two games.
2 games.
At the start of the season, and obviously you're going to miss Pennington for a while due to his injury.
3 months.
I mean, in terms of options, one of the ones we mentioned beforehand was Webster, Adam Webster at Ipswich. Someone G will be very familiar with because he had him in his 2017 save.
Albeit only for a year, but he did a really good job, and the only reason I sold him because I got offered quite a lot of money. I'm guessing because he was English and quite young as well still. But yeah, very fast, good to very good, I suppose, in terms of heading, marking and tackling. Marking and tackling's only 13, but with him being young, 22 years old, I reckon that could go up a little bit. And mentally, he's not bad neither. Positioning needs a little bit of work, but his pace does more than make up for it, I think. He got me out of quite a lot of tricky situations, I remember, on my save last year.
Right, and the other option you have, if you were looking to buy a centre-back, and we're going to contradict ourselves a little bit here because we were talking about how we both like pace in a team. The other option you could possibly get is Aidan Flint. Now, if you're a Leeds fan, and me and G are obviously, we were linked quite heavily with this guy over the summer, but nothing came about. G, what are your thoughts on him?
Like you said, he's not the quickest, but everywhere else, pretty much he excels. Marking maybe lets him down slightly with 13, but 13 is not a bad attribute at all for the Championship. But everything else, strength is very good. Jumping reach 17. He's 6'6". He's an absolute animal. He's been fed poachers or other small strikers or whatever deem poachers to be small. So it might be wrong, but yeah, that's what he's been eating for breakfast all the time. Decisions lets him down a little bit as well, but for like a defensive centre back or central defender, I think he's more than adequate. He's probably not the best at ball in terms of ball playing because his passing is only 10, but 10 is pretty damn good in my opinion for a centre back. Championship level, probably at the highest.
So the other areas, centre midfield. Next one we're going to look at. I think we're pretty much set here. It's probably a place where we've had an overabundance of players. Because right now we've got obviously the key ones you're looking at: Calvin Phillips, Ronaldo Vieira, Ewan O'Kane, Matthias Klitsch, who's still injured. Another one who's going to be on the shelf for a little while, not as long as Pennington, but he will definitely come in and probably be one of your more accomplished centre midfielders. Then you've also got like we said, Shag Nasty, he can play there. Vernon Anita can play there as well in centre midfield at a stretch. So don't think this really is a place where you need to strengthen unless someone comes along who you just cannot say no to. G has a different opinion, and he's going to go through that now.
It's basically what you've just said there. Someone you can't say no to, and it basically boils down to ball-winning midfielders. And if you want a ball-winning midfielder in the Leeds team, or if you want to find one, you're not going to get one, in my opinion. The nearest being Vernon Anita, but because he doesn't play the centre midfield role that well in terms of his role suitability, you might want to go for someone else. The best person I nearly signed on my save, but because somehow I lost some money, basically signing on fees, I think, for staff members. I lost like most of my 5 million transfer fee, and it was Ben Pearson, who you could get from Preston North End. He looks class for the ball-winning midfielder, especially at this level. And he can play defensive midfield as well, so he covers a couple of different positions. He can pass a ball as well at 14. And he says valued at 9 million. I nearly got him, for about 10.5 million over, I think I did it over 48 months or something like that, or a little bit less. But about, I think I did something like 2 million up front, and then the rest over 48 months.
And, well, what we're going to do now is take a look at wingers. Now, we're kind of set for wingers a little bit, but I still think there's areas where I still think we could use maybe one. We mentioned that we've got a very versatile side, so you've got players who can play, like just highlighting Samu Saeed, he can play on the left wing if you needed to. Alioski can play on the left or the right. Kemar Roof can play on the left or the right, or straight up the middle. We've got Stuart Dallas, he can play left or right, but if you did want to get a winger in, one of them that I earmarked and looked at is someone who actually did burners last year. It's Ben Woodburn.
See what he did there.
Yeah,
did
clever.
burners.
Yeah, he scored the winner in the League Cup. What was it? The quarter
fourth
final?
round, I think.
Fourth
quarter
round?
final, it might have been. Yeah. It was quarters.
I mean, he's 17 years of age, but his dribbling's good, his finishing's good, he's got a great first touch, good technique, pace 13. He's going to be an absolutely cracking player, but again, it's whether you really want to bring someone in. You don't have to, as I've said, you've got enough in those areas, but again, G, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts here because I've just checked it out. Apparently, Liverpool would require a playing wage contribution of 100%, which is 775 quid. That's all you'd have to pay. Well, you've got your own use as well, but basically you don't have to pay any fees. So essentially, you're getting a really good player, a promising player for pittance, and it'd be very good backup. So the problem you've got is like Saeed, you can play him on the left, but he's not the best on the left or the right or whatever. But like Woodburn, looking at him here for the left hand side, could really do a job, and he can play up front as well and as an attacking midfielder. So it's adding some more versatility, and he can do a job on the right hand side as well. Looking at it. Yeah.
So if you did want to get a winger, that's one option. Another option is, I'm going to leave G to say his name, Kevin George.
Georges Kevin and Kudu, I believe.
That's it. I said his name backwards. But yeah, he's actually transfer listed for 3.4 million. His wages are quite high, 35,000 a week. But it's another option, and he can play on the left side as that inside forward role. He is a bit one-dimensional, but he's got pace.
He's got pace, and that's what you need. I mean, we've got pace in Sacco, but he's got no end product. Whereas this guy looks like he's got a hell of a lot more end product. Same with Woodburn, to be fair. He's similar. He's right-footed as well. Goes on the left-hand side. Could probably do a job as a winger on the right. But yeah, it's just having that player who's got, because we've got players that are technically gifted, but not necessarily that quick. So that's the issue, and it's about adding pace to the attacking positions, particularly if you're going to try and do what we're trying to do on this. In particular, these tactics that we selected is a counter tactic that relies on pace.
Another area, depending on the formation you play, is attacking midfielder, which again we very much set here. Everybody knows Samu Saiz. If you're a Leeds fan, you know how good he's been.
Yeah.
He's the shoe-in to play in that position. Unless he's injured, he's going to play in that position if you decide to utilise him in that role. And then we've also got Pablo Hernandez as well. Again, good, but not as good as Saiz.
And he's ageing as well, so he's only going to get worse in terms of his physicals. Other than that, you've got Click, who can do a job if you need to. And you've also got, where's he gone? Kamar Roof, who can also do a job to some degree. But obviously nowhere near the standard of Saiz, and you could argue Hernandez.
And the last area is up front, where again we've got quite a lot of options here, and I don't think you really need to. Here.
I think there's a case to be made with the fact, well, you've got, like I said, if you've got Ben Woodburn in, he can play up front, and you've also got like Kamar Roof as well, who can play up front. So, you've got a lot of options, probably too many, if I'm honest with you. And you've got J. Groh and Olusoga, both very, very similar. So with that in mind, technically speaking, if you really wanted to, and you didn't fancy him for whatever reason, you could always cancel the loan of Olusoga because he's got 26 grand a week taken up out of your budget. So it's one thing you could do, and it could free up obviously some money for elsewhere. But he's good enough, I think, for this level. Definitely. He's not the quickest off the mark, but when he gets going, he's not too bad, and he's like a tank, 17 strength and that, and he's determined, and he works hard. So you can't. He's got the attributes are there everywhere else. It's a bit like defenders. Defenders have got everything else. Like Aidan Flint's got everything else, but he ain't got pace. It's a bit like that sort of situation.
Okay then, guys, but that's the end of today's video and part 2 and the final part of our guide to Leeds United. If you haven't already, for some reason you've watched this entire video, you've not checked out the first part, go take a look in the description of this video, because you'll find a link not only to G's channel, but also the first part of the video where we looked at the first team, the under-23s, the under-18s, the staff and so on. But like I said, make sure you check out G's channel, because he's doing some... what are you doing? What save-wise are you doing?
I'm doing yours? Leeds United a bit later on, in the main save it's going to be Tranmere Rovers.
So there you go. Two different saves you can possibly look at there. The Leeds United one probably is a guide of how not to manage Leeds. So if you want to avoid any potential pitfalls, then I suggest you go and check that one out. But if you did enjoy this video, guys, make sure you hit like and subscribe to my channel and G's as well, because I'll be doing my Billericay Rising save as soon as the database is available. But again, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.
Cheers.